Snow falls on Nebraska's farms and ranches, but is it enough to break the drought? On Grow, we'll hear from the experts about the ongoing dry spell. Plus, some folks in the beef state are flocking to the poultry industry. We'll have more. And the legislature's back in session with many issues affecting agriculture. We'll have a closer look. Agriculture powers Nebraska. Learn more on Grow. This week's snowfall brings some much needed moisture following a drier than normal year. That's our top story, and NTV's Iffy Sinachi Egbosimba has more.
We're not sure just how much rain spring will bring, so the Phelps County Extension Office says it's too early to know what impact low precipitation in 2016 will have.
It's a little too early for me to be worried about it. Mother Nature will trick you every time, I think.
Row crop farmer Shane Walgemuth bringing his work indoors today as Mother Nature sprinkles some much needed moisture across our area. According to the National Drought Mitigation Center, 2016 was an abnormally dry year for Nebraska.
There are a couple of areas of severe drought, primarily around the Tri-Cities, especially Kearney County and the Minden area. That's been an area really all summer and fall that's been very dry.
Something that could cause concern for farmers.
There's always that chance that when we don't build our profile moisture in the fall and in the winter, that it can have an impact on our crop production the next year, especially if we don't have irrigation as a possibility.
Extension educator Todd Whitney says this dry, fluffy snow not helping much at all.
It helps maybe on some surface moisture and putting some moisture in some ponds and some of that, but as far as really helping the fields, it's not as beneficial.
Mike Mortz with the National Weather Service in Hastings says we typically only see 1 to 2 inches of moisture in the winter months, but rain in the spring could replenish the soil in time for planting.
If we don't see rain then that really puts a lot of stress going into the main part of the growing season.
Rain farmers like Walgemuth are putting their money on.
We always hope for the best, and usually we do catch a pretty good rain in the spring to get us going planting, and I guess I'm banking on that this year.
Mort says there are a lot of concerns following dry periods, including fire. He adds if we remain dry, fire concerns will only increase as we head into spring. For NTV News, I'm Iffy Sinachi Egbosimba. Back to you.
Thanks, Iffy. The USDA says temps last month were below normal. High winds on Christmas Day damaged many pivots in south central Nebraska when those hurricane-force winds hit. The USDA reports good use of corn stalks for winter grazing. Winter wheat rates mostly fair to good, and pasture conditions rate mostly good to excellent, with average cattle death loss. And here in the beef state, some are warming up to the idea of poultry production. Hendricks Genetics is opening a new egg-laying facility in Grand Island and is contracting with family farmers in the area. This week, a York County couple held an open house for their new pullet barn. The outgoing head of AFAN says poultry is one area where there's room for growth.
You know, we're really a non-traditional poultry state, but when you stop and think about it, we have everything here to be a very positive poultry state. I think the move to bring livestock, including poultry, closer to the crop is a huge change from what it's been.
Willow Hollebeck is leaving AFAN and says she'll continue to advocate for animal agriculture. A new coalition says property taxes are much more than an issue on the farm, with more than 12,000 signatures to prove it. Could this effort succeed where past have failed? Here's more.
And providing for once and for all meaningful property tax reform.
Small business owners, school leaders, and yes, farmers launch a new coalition, calling on lawmakers to do something about taxes. They say the state relies too heavily on property taxes and call for a 1-cent sales tax increase to help pay for schools.
We understand that we don't want to hurt public education. We support public education, so we need to find a way to make up that lost revenue. And what we're saying is perhaps taxing internet sales, perhaps a slight increase in the state sales tax can make up that additional revenue, can provide meaningful property tax reform in this state.
A Boone County farmer says taxes keep going up, even as farm income is down.
As a farmer, you plan on a big tax bill. You know it's going to be there, but when those revenues drop, it's a lot harder to write that big check.
Miracle is involved in Nebraska Farm Bureau, although the group itself has not signed on to this coalition yet. But Miracle says this effort may succeed where past attempts have failed because it's a broader base.
With the help of a coalition that includes our homeowners, I think we're going to see a lot more progress.
Past efforts for property tax reform have largely been about agriculture, because unfortunately agriculture is the hardest hit in this regard. But we're a coalition of small business owners, of people who own their homes, homeowners.
Reform for Nebraska's Future, as the group is calling itself, has collected more than 10,000 signatures in support of its basic principles, namely reducing the burden placed on property taxes. Tax relief is on the governor's agenda as well, but it could be a tough sell with some lawmakers as the state faces a major budget shortfall.
The 105th legislature.
And this was the week the legislature started their session. They do so under a looming budget shortfall.
Yes, Smith.
Senator Kurt Friesen tells his fellow farmers tax relief is still possible.
A lot of people said, while our budget shortfall will keep us from doing something, no, it won't. We will still move ahead with property tax relief of some sort. We won't give up.
And about 2/3 of property tax money goes to schools.
We rely too much on property taxes to fund our education. We need to fix it.
Sir Groney.
Senator Mike Groney of North Platte says the school funding formula is broken, since more than half of schools don't get any state aid. And as the newly elected chair of the Education Committee, he intends to do something about it.
And after being here 2 years, I understand that a huge piece of the puzzle to fix our property tax burdens.
And that brings us to our poll question. What do you think the priority should be this year in the legislature? And it looks like we've got a clear winner, with property tax relief coming in #1 in a landslide, followed by budget cuts. Some folks with farm backgrounds will take leadership roles in the legislature. Senator Lydia Brosh will chair the Agriculture Committee, and former Corn Board member Kurt Friesen heads Transportation and Telecommunications, saying infrastructure is critical for agriculture.
And some of the, whether it's roads or broadband access, I really felt strongly if we want to see strong economic development in the rural parts of the state, this is a very important committee.
And Senator Dan Hughes of Perkins County will oversee the Natural Resources Committee, the folks who deal with important questions related to water.
I've lived and farmed my whole life in the Republican River Basin, and have experienced firsthand the challenges of trying to address both surface and well water issues. As an irrigated farmer, I've had meters measuring the amount of water I can pump for over 40 years.
Now to Washington, where cattlemen outlined their priorities for the new president. NCBA, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, issued federal land management priorities for the new administration to bring responsible management and economic viability back to the Western landscape. Cattlemen are concerned with how the Bureau of Land Management has operated under President Obama, and they call on President-elect Trump to repeal habitat designations and withdraw the EPA's Waters of the U.S. rule. Cattlemen say ranchers who use federal lands maintain fence lines, reduce the spread of invasive weeds, and lessen the chance of wildfires through responsible grazing. And this week, Senator Deb Fischer from here in Nebraska met the man who may head the EPA. Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt is the president-elect's nominee to run the Environmental Protection Agency. Pruitt has said he wants to take on the EPA's activist agenda, but environmental groups oppose Pruitt, saying he denies the science on climate change. Fischer says EPA overreach under President Obama has made life harder for Nebraskans, and she says Pruitt may be able to roll back the red tape. Now to our poll question, and we want to know what the new president can do to have a positive impact on agriculture. Is it reducing federal regulation, or maybe better trade deals? How about renewable fuels, or is the Farm Bill most important? Cast your votes on our Twitter account. Finding money for food research, UNL's chancellor will lead the way. Dr. Ronnie Green is a beef geneticist by training and previously served as University Vice President for Ag and Natural Resources. Now, as UNL Chancellor, he's been chosen to lead a committee that represents land-grant universities and come up with recommendations for Congress for funding food and natural resources research. Next, a look at the Beef Quality Assurance Program. Later, poultry coming to central Nebraska, and we debut a new segment, the County Snapshot.